What was the darkest time in your life?
I hit rock bottom to where I didn't want to live anymore. I was going to end my life.
A lot of us have variations of trauma.
It's never easy. It's messy. I broke the silence of my abuse. That was just the beginning. The more I feel like I share and talk about it, I'm always hopeful that I'm touching somebody that they can say, oh my gosh, she did it. As your thought process starts to change, things become different. And different doesn't mean always better.
What did you have to let go of to become who you are now?
Oh, I had to let go of a lot of things. We really have to face our fears. We really have to face our inner demons.
A lot of us sometimes don't have that courage or that first step.
It takes time, it takes work, it takes commitment.
How do you turn that pain that you've gone through into purpose? Today's guest is Lisa Zarcone, and what makes her story so compelling is not just what she's been through. She built her life from the inside out, found her voice, and turned her experience into purpose, leadership, and impact. But the real question is this: how does someone do all of that, and what can the rest of us learn from it? Lisa, welcome to Tea Talks.
Oh, TJ, thank you so much for having me today. I'm glad we can do this.
It's an absolute pleasure. Lisa, so let's start off with a quick challenge. I would like you to introduce yourself in under 30 seconds in a way that you've never done before.
Interesting. Lisa Zarcone, author, child and mental health advocate, public speaker. I'm here today talking about authenticity, leadership, and what I bring to the table.
Amazing, amazing. Lisa, thank you very much. And what I want to focus on today is really about rebuilding one's life. And you had to do this probably multiple times, right? So what did rebuilding your life actually require from you, and what does it require from you?
Rebuilding your life is just, it's so many steps. You really have to look deep inside of yourself to see what the problems and challenges are. And then you have to really get a good game plan together and figure out how you're going to move forward and make these things happen. It's a long process sometimes, but so worth it, because when you put that effort into yourself, wonderful things do happen.
Lisa, a lot of people don't like blaming themselves. They look at outward. We blame circumstances. We blame the boss. We blame, parents or relationship, whatever all of that is. How do you get to the point where you focus on your inner self and forget everything else? Like, 'cause that's what I went through as well. Like, you go through burnout, you go through, challenges as I did in corporate. And instead of blaming the system and blaming everything else out there, I started looking at myself. And from there, the drastic improvement happened. But it takes a certain level of awareness to do this. How does one get that?
It's interesting because I know ego does always play a big part of it, because we don't want to blame ourselves and say, oh my goodness, I've done all of it wrong, or everything else is against me. And I think that's a key factor, because people do fall into that feeling of the world's against me, my job's against me, life's against me. I can't change it. So I'm just going to sit in it. And I think the self-awareness piece comes in when you realize that you have the ability to make change happen. And that starts out with looking at yourself, looking at what are the problems, what are your struggles, and how are you going to overcome them? And you have to also give yourself some grace and say, yes, I've made my mistakes. I've done things that I probably should have done differently, but now let me learn from those things and take them with me as I move forward. And once you realize those things, that's when things start to change for you, and things get better, and you see the world a little bit differently, looking through another set of lenses, so to speak. And that is, I think, the basis where you start to rebuild yourself, rebuild your life, and do the work that needs to be done.
And is it a quick journey, or does it take time?
It's never a quick journey. It's really, we always hope it's a quick journey. We want it to be a quick journey, but it's not a quick journey, because you're always, evolving and changing, and your environment changes, and the things that you want to do change. And it's okay to have a different thought process. We, start out with one thing and think about this is where we're supposed to be. And then we realize that's not the true end of, where we want to go. It's always a constant, taking those moments to reflect, pause, look at, where are you on your journey, and where do you need to be? And then again, putting a good, strong plan together, a good mindset, and move forward to work towards those goals.
Yeah, you touched on mindset. How important is mindset in all of this?
Mindset is the key to everything. It really, really is, because your mindset could take you down the rabbit hole. Your mindset could take you to the tops of the world. It depends on how you are feeling internally and how you bring that out. And I always say, be your own cheerleader, because mindset is so important. Tell yourself you are worthy of good things. You are worthy of all of these accomplishments. And you incorporate that into your everyday life. And when you have a strong mindset, wonderful things do come forward.
A lot of us in corporate, and I'm not longer there anymore, but when I say us, I was there for 20 years, so I kind of understand it and lived and breathed it every day. We're hesitant on being our own cheerleaders. We expect the boss or team members to do it. A lot of us don't like to say showboat per se, right?
Right.
And so, how does one overcome that? Because a lot of our professionals are sitting there working tirelessly every single day. They're sacrificing their family time, they're sacrificing everything. How do they get out of this, especially with performance reviews coming around the corner as well for a lot of organizations, and show up and say, you know what, I am going to be my own cheerleader this year?
You have to really, dig deep again within yourself and think about, what you want. What do you truly want in life? What do you want to accomplish? Business, personal, all of those things. And this is going to sound a little bit, maybe geeky in a sense, but write things down. Put those little sticky notes around your desk, around your surroundings, and read them to yourself. And I always feel when you read things to yourself out loud and you hear your own voice say them, you're validating your intentions. You are validating your worth. And those little things that may seem mindless to people are like a waste of time. They're really not, because every day you are reminding yourself, this is where I want to be. This is what I need to do. I am worth it and I'm going to make it happen. And that's when the mindset comes in, because that's the second ladder to that piece, is because once you're hearing yourself say it and you're constantly reminding yourself, now the mindset kicks in and you're like, yes, I am worth it. Yes, I am going to be my own cheerleader. In the corporate world, you're going to say, look, they're going to all see me shine. They are going to see me excel, and they're going to see me do it the way I want to do it.
I love that, and I love the aspect of being intentional and writing it down. What's
Yes.
one thing, or what's the first thing they can write down, or what's the one thing they can write down today that will actually give them the shift for a better life?
I am worthy. I believe it comes from that, because when you look at self esteem and you look at self image, people have a clouded view many times. And a lot of that comes from, like you say, so you're in this corporate world, you're working tirelessly, you're missing these family occasions because you are so dedicated to try to move forward and succeed. You lose your self worth, you lose your self image, and you become the background. And part of that, when you look at yourself and say, I am worthy, that means that you are stepping out of that background into the light, and you're saying, here I am. This is who I am. This is what I bring to the table, and I'm worthy of being there.
What role did mentors play in your life to have this kind of mindset, if any at all?
There's been many mentors in my life. As a young girl, I struggled, of course, with my own personal story of abuse and trauma. And I had certain people in my life that were my cheerleaders, who saw something in me that I didn't see at the time. And they said to me, you can do this. This is where you belong. And I pushed towards those goals. And I had a wonderful art teacher at one point. I had another mentor who was in a work program. Those are my young mentors. But as I got older and made my way through, mentors in regards to like Mother Teresa, Maya Angelou, reading her words and the essence of her, Rosa Parks. I look at all, Amelia Earhart, just of her energy, of her tenacity, and Princess Diana. What a beautiful soul! All of these women in my world that I've read about and studied all gave me little pieces of where I needed to go. And honestly, when I really think back, way back, my grandmother Rose was the most amazing woman. She was blind, and she did things that you just couldn't imagine that she would be doing. She was cooking, she was doing things. She was highly intelligent, but she was always my driving force. When I was struggling, she would be the one behind me to say, nope, do not sit back and cry about it. Go do something about it. And those words always stuck with me.
I love that. So don't sit there and cry about it. Go do something about it.
Do something about it. Don't sit there and
Yeah.
cry. Move forward. Always move forward.
Yeah. No, I love that. And this is what I do with my kids at home as well. It's like, don't complain about something. Give me a solution.
Exactly.
I don't want just a complaint. I want a solution. And then we can assess if that solution is worthy of moving, forward with it or not. But it forces them to not look at the problem, but it forces them to move away from it and
and
start looking for a solution now.
yes, and find a solution. My grandmother was really good at that with me because we would sit at, I used to call it the round table because it was the kitchen table, and she was always there. And I would be doing my homework or being, struggling with something. And she always had firm words. She was very a loving person, but she was a very strong woman. And she would come out with these firm, strong words and phrases to me and be like, again, Lisa, stop crying. That's not going to help you. Go figure it out. Do it. Just do it. And I would. And it would just push me to move forward and figure it out. And those are very important things to have in your life, to know that you have someone behind you to say that to you, because it gives you that push, that drive. And we all need that sometimes. We all need that drive. And if there's nobody there to be that driving force, you have to find within yourself to do it. So that's why I say be your own cheerleader, because sometimes you might not have that person in your corner when you're struggling, and you have to, again, dig really, really deep in there and say, I got this, I can do this. Let me figure out the solution to this problem, and I'm going to make good things happen.
From your perspective, then, I guess through your journey, what was the first real sign that you were actually becoming stronger? Because that doesn't happen overnight. So you're going through putting the cycles in, putting all the effort in, having, the tough conversations with yourself. What was the real first sign for you that you actually were becoming stronger and this was working?
For me, I want to say it was when I finally realized that I had to face my past. My past was very, very, very awful and very, what's the word I want to say? Horrendous. I could do so many words. I'm sorry. I get emotional when I still think about it because my past was so difficult. There was so much trauma and abuse and those things. I think for me, a defining moment was when I realized I had to stop running. I had to stop running from it, and I had to turn around and face it. And once I did that, I actually named it. I named it Taming the Beast, because my life was such a beast back then. And I fought for that. I fought for my freedom. I fought to break the silence. And then I realized the more that I spoke, the more that I validated what I went through, and I started healing. That's when I saw my transformation start to happen, my rebuilding of my life, myself, because I was completely broken. I was whole and broken at the same time, if that makes sense, because I was living this life, married with young children, working on a career, doing all these things. And at the same time, my inner child, my inner self was completely broken because I was never given the opportunity to heal. Never, I never gave myself that opportunity to heal, if you really want to say it correctly, because I held all that silence for years upon years. So my transformation came from going to therapy, breaking the silence, sharing my story, and then taking the really, really bold step to write my own memoir and to share my story with the world, which was actually very terrifying, but empowering at the same time. I'm, helping others come out of the darkness so they can share their story and they can heal as well. So each level that I take really makes me see, where I belong and what I should be doing.
What was the darkest time in your life?
There was many dark times in my life. I think if I want to tap into just one, when I was probably about 13 years old, I was going through years of abuse. I lost my brother at a young age. My mother was sick with mental illness, and I was going through a lot of abuse. There was a second abuser that came in, and he was a sexual abuser. And I hit rock bottom to where I didn't want to live anymore. So I think one of my darkest moments was I contemplated suicide. And I thought to myself, I'm 13 years old, my world and my life is over. And how sad is that, to think that at 13, you would imagine your life to be over. I even had a game plan. I had a plan on what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And I did actually go out one day, and I was going to do it. I was going to end my life. And something deep, deep inside of me came forward and told me and to stop. Don't do it. This is not the answer. And I didn't go through with it. And I'm so grateful that I did not go through with it, because here I am today doing what I was doing. But that, I have to say, was one, I've had a few, but one of the most darkest moments, because no 13-year-old child should ever, ever feel that their life is over and there's no way out.
I'm grateful you didn't do it. We're listening and we're grateful you didn't do it, Lisa. It's unfortunate. And I think a lot of us have variations of trauma. I've lost a young niece to mental health and suicide. Right. So I can understand and relate. And to this day, I sometimes think, and if she had just picked up the phone
Yes.
and just spoke to someone and just, and we could have helped her through it.
Yes.
But it's so all yeah, I'm saying is I'm glad you made that change in yourself, and you can help so many others. And I hope if there are others that are listening or know someone who's going through trauma or mental health, can share this episode to understand that there is hope, there is opportunity, and there is a way to rebuild ourselves.
There is. I just want to say I'm very sorry. I'm sorry for the loss of your niece. I can say in listening to you speak that I understand in a sense what her perspective was in that moment. She felt like there was no way out. And many people who struggle with mental health and, all these things with trauma and abuse, they do feel that. They feel it's the end of the road. They don't know what else to do. And I think for many, they do want to speak out, but they just don't know how. And that's unfortunate. And that's why we advocate the way we do, because we want people to know they're worthy and there is a way.
And you're so right, because you say they don't know how, and it's because all the people around them are the ones that have suppressed them. And
Yes.
so therefore they really don't know how. And but there are avenues, there are ways that they can actually go out, but you have to just go look for them. And again, anyone who's listening, I assure you there are ways. And I highly, highly, highly suggest you send them this conversation, because Lisa is obviously someone who's gone through it, not only just changed her life, but turned it around in a way that you're an author, you're helping others, you're supporting others, you're the voice of those individuals. So there are ways out. So Lisa, with that, I mean, when life has taken so much away from you, how does one rebuild their confidence?
That's a whole separate journey in itself, because we talk about all these things, the healing journey, the rebuilding journey, all these journeys that we do go on within life. So when you have hit rock bottom and that you feel like there's nowhere to go, you have to go up. I always say never give up, never give in, because don't give into it. Find a way, research, think about, reflect on yourself, to anything you find that spark. There's always going to be a spark. And some people don't believe that, but it is true. Even when you are in your darkest hour, there is always that little glimmer of hope. And when you tap into that little glimmer of hope and you hold on for dear life, it will lead you out of the darkness. It takes time. It takes work. You have to really, really continue to push yourself, even when you feel you can't take another step. I mean, I've talked about feeling like I've worn cement shoes and I'm trying so desperately to move forward, move forward. And I felt like I can't go another step. But it's that little glimmer of hope in there and that little piece of passion that I believe we always have. If you can find that, even just a tiny, tiny bit, that is what's going to help you to move forward.
That's all it takes. It's not a whole lot. It's not a big transformation. It's that little spark
It
initially.
is that little spark. And that little spark brings you to the big journey, because of course, when we talk about all of these things that we're talking about today, it's nothing's easy. It's never easy. It's messy. All of these things get messy. And, it's not like you go from A to Z in a day and feel like, oh, I'm better now. Like when I broke the silence of my abuse. That was just the beginning. For me, I'm like, okay, I did it. It's not better, it's different. And I think that's another piece to add into all of this. You have to remember, as your thought process starts to change, things become different. And different doesn't mean always better. It just means that you have to hit different levels to get to where you need to be. And it does take time.
Through that journey, what did you have to let go of to become who you are now?
Oh, I had to let go of a lot of things. I had to let go of old lifestyle choices. I had to let go of different old mindsets that really got me to a certain place, but then did no longer serve me anymore. I lived in fight or flight mode for years. So that mindset in itself had to go, because if I kept in that mode of fight and flight, I could never move forward. And I was stuck in that mindset for years before I finally said, enough is enough. It's time to move forward and change it. And you have to really look at those things and say, okay, my old patterns, my old coping skills or non-coping skills or, negative coping skills, you have to learn to release them and find new positive ways to move forward and help yourself. And that is all in transformation. That is all in self awareness, learning about yourself. The best thing I could tell people is we all have triggers. We've all been through things. Everyone, like you said, has different trauma pieces, but you have to really look at your triggers and your self awareness and see how you can make that a positive and how you can turn that around for yourself.
And through all that, Lisa, you're talking about my behaviors, my thoughts, my this, my that. Again, you're pointing inwards, right? And
Yes.
again, and I want to focus on this again because I think we oversimplify it, right? Even for myself, it's like, yeah, I changed my habits here and I changed this here. That takes a hell lot of work to change who you are and reprogram your own mind. And I'm calling it reprogramming because I've got a computer science background, so I've been in computer science from that perspective. It really is reprogramming the software that's in our head,
Oh,
because as you grow up, everything just is normalized and you think that is normal.
right.
And then you have to go in and say, let me assess the software that's inside me versus what's the software in other people and see what's going on here. And then how do I that's easier said than done, especially with someone dealing with trauma. Like for me, it was a little bit different, different variations of trauma of, severe anxiety. I fainted on a flight on my 12-year-old daughter.
Oh, jeez.
There was trauma in that sense, anxiety, panic attacks, severe panic attacks, to the point where I was calling the paramedics almost daily. Like that's how bad it was, right? So to
Debilitating.
take all of that, yeah, to reprogram all of that takes a lot, and so a lot of us sometimes don't have that courage or that first step. Where
Yeah.
does one start?
It does take a lot. It takes so much work. It's exhausting work. And I'll always remind people as you're going through this process, celebrate your little victories. Each step, celebrate. When you're exhausted, rest. Take that space. But where do you begin? Because it really is about reprogramming the mind, like you say. And I look at it again from that trauma piece. A trauma mind is a very messy place again to be. You're inside there. Things have been, there's these misfires, there's these, everything has changed, your brain is shifted. Now how do we shift it back? How do we get through it? We really have to face our fears. We really have to face our inner demons, and it's scary. I found the best way to start reprogramming my mind was writing down what were my, worst things that happened. What were those things that triggered me into these, patterns that I'm into now? It takes, again, a lot of self work, a lot of courage, because you have to admit to yourself that you've been struggling. You have to admit to yourself, hey, I need help. And a lot of people don't want to do that because that goes back to the ego factor. And we all have to look at it as we all need help sometimes in our lives. But the reprogramming is a daily process. You have to, again, remind yourself daily of certain things, write things down. Again, read them out loud to yourself. I'm a true believer in that. I'm a true believer when you read things out loud to yourself, you are validating. You are validating your thoughts. You're validating your mindset. You're validating your feelings. And that's where the change comes in, because you start switching up what you're reading to yourself. You start out by, this is what I've been through. This is why I'm where I am. Now let's switch it up. This is where I would like to be. How am I going to get there? And then start being your own cheerleader, telling yourself, I can do this. This is an affirmation, constant affirmation. And the more that you do that, your mindset does naturally start to heal. It naturally starts to switch. It's like feeding a baby. You're giving them good things. You're giving them all of this good stuff. They're absorbing, absorbing, absorbing. And that's how we have to retrain our brain. We have to give it good things. We have to stop being, giving it the negativity and the darkness. Let's start giving it the goodness and the light. And you will find that transformation happens. But it really is, you have to really, really commit to it, because it's, again, it's not one of those things you can say, I did it for 3 days, I'm better. No, it's like, because a lot of people are that way. And I was that way myself many times. I'll be, okay, I did it, I'm done. No, no, no. You have to keep going back to square one, and you keep pushing forward slowly, but you can retrain your brain. It takes time, it takes work, it takes commitment, but you are worthy of those good things. You have to always tell yourself, I'm worthy. I can make this happen for myself. I want better and I deserve better. And that's how you get there.
Absolutely. And I think you're taking me down another path where a lot of people, especially, and I don't want to generalize, but in certain communities, have a perspective that some things are just given to them in this way. This is life. This is how their life is written. This is the path they're supposed to be on. This is destiny, right? I firmly believe that that can be changed. It's not written per se. There's misinterpretations from my perspective that I see, and I don't want to challenge any religious aspects of it. But I feel that we have the ability of choice. So we have the choice to make certain decisions that we would like to do, right? So based on that, our future changes. And so one of the quotes I have written that I created when I went through this transformation for myself, it sits right by my desk, is your decisions today will define your tomorrow. For me, it's what am I being intentional about? And that has changed my trajectory, like drastically. So a lot of people are stuck that this is life. These are the cards they're dealt. What do we do now?
Yes, I know. And I agree with you. Like you talk about, you don't want to get deep into religion and different cultures and those things, but people in different, lifestyles, they just accept. It's that acceptance piece. They accept this is my life. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm told I have to do. And I'm just going to follow along and do it. And the ones who break the cycle and break the chain, sometimes have to walk that path alone. And that's terrifying. But I think it all comes with drive. What is your true drive? What is your true passion? Where do you want to be in life? I have to tell you, when I wrote my memoir and I published it, I was, again, terrified for many reasons. But one big reason was my family. My family disowned me. I walked a path alone for a long time. I mean, I had my husband, my children, my family, but I'm talking about my family that I grew up with, my culture, my roots came from. I came from a culture where you spoke about nothing. And I was told that you walk out the front door, you put on your game face, you do what you have to do. You never speak a word of what happens in this house. What happens in the family stays within the family. And for me to break that cycle, to break that silence, that's like taboo. It was like, and I blew it up. I blew up the family, I guess, because, you know, we can laugh about this, but it's true. But in the moment, I was terrified because I'm like, I know by sharing my truth, I'm going to lose people.
And isn't it crazy that now, if you think about it, if we're being suppressed not to say something, maybe it's not right.
Exactly. When you're talking about the corporate piece, like when sometimes you have to go against the grain to be noticed, to be seen, to be heard. Because again, when you are that good child, that good student, the good employee who does everything, the yes person, you become almost a mat. And everyone walks all over you because they're like, oh, they're just going to do it. They're not going to complain. They're not going to buck the system. They're just going to be quiet and take care of business. And that's the same thing in a family. Everyone has a role. Everyone has a place. And when you step out of place, everybody like gets crazy and be like, oh my goodness, what's happening right now? You're shaking up the system. You're shaking up, the protocol. Growing up, I heard a lot about protocol. It's all about protocol. Everyone's got a place. And that does flow over into the business world. Everyone has a place. But again, we do have a place at the table when you think of it that way, but that doesn't mean we don't have a voice. And there's a big difference right there, because when you start to have a voice, people will stop and listen. But also when you have a voice against what others are saying, you're kind of put over here. They're like, whoa, that's the troublemaker. That's the one that's what is causing the problems right now. Why are we having this issue? And I think it's finding that balance of speaking respectfully, speaking, from a place of where you're saying, hey, I should be respected for the things I'm doing here. You can find that balance that you are going to be seen and heard in an appropriate way.
In those scenarios that we defined where you're saying yes and you're doing everything, those individuals genuinely like who you are. It's not that they don't like you or anything, and they genuinely like who you are because you're serving their needs and their purposes, right? So they actually love who you are. But it's when you break away from that, all of a sudden, you've changed. You're not the same person you used to be. Yeah, because I'm not serving your interests anymore, right? Like that's the transformation. And I think a lot of people need to understand. I firmly believe everyone has a voice. Everyone has a purpose, but we have to dig deeper into figuring out what that is for ourselves.
Right.
And once we do, then you become, unstoppable per se. But
exactly,
that momentum starts building after that, right? But you have to really start with saying no to certain things that you're not in agreement with.
Right, and people will call you difficult. I mean, you know what I mean? I've been called difficult many times in my life, I can tell you that.
It's my
Um,
middle name.
it's like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry I'm being difficult, but I have a voice, I have an opinion, I have a thought process, and maybe it's not exactly, the one that you have, but we should be heard." And, it doesn't mean always to when you step to the table and you speak of these things, it doesn't mean that you're gonna be right all the time, but you should have the ability and the opportunity to be able to put it out there, to be able to say, "Is this something that is going to work? Is this something that's going to be successful?" And you can look at that in all aspects of life. It just doesn't have to be business. It's in everything that we do. We think about things, we dream about things, then we go, okay, should we be doing this? Is this something we should tap into? You have to question. So if we don't question, nothing ever changes.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. And I think, with change, I want to touch on something else as well, because a lot of times when we've gone through trauma, when we've gone through challenges and struggles, a lot of us want to cover that up, put it away in a corner, and never have to reveal it, right? You've chosen to work with it. I've chosen to work with it directly and say, I'm going to talk about burnout. I'm going to talk about mental health. I'm going to talk about all of this and help others through it. How do you turn that pain that you've gone through into purpose without letting that pain define who you are over and over again? Because we're talking about programming our minds, and the
Right.
more we're kind of talking about it and addressing it, the more it stays with us. So
Right.
how do you separate from that, Lisa?
Yeah, that takes a lot of work too. I have to be honest. Like, so writing my story, it took me a long time to write my story because I had to tap into all of those old memories, those feelings, writing my story from the child's perspective. I wrote from the child's mind, which was very, very hard to do. And I had to relive those horrific moments. And I had to stop. So sometimes you have to stop and give yourself a brain break. You have to give yourself rest in between because you will get that burnout and you will, you want to take on too much, then you're not going to be successful. You have to remind yourself to take things in doses, take it into small pieces, break it up piece by piece, start at the beginning, keep moving forward. And that is going to be your stepping stones to get you to where you need to be, to find your successes. And it's again, it's about that self-awareness. You really have to look at yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. And I think for all of us, it's hard to be honest with yourself, especially with the dark pieces, because you have to look at them, you have to face them, and you have to really examine the emotions that go with it. And that could be very difficult. But I believe if you take them in doses, piece by piece, push forward, once you go through a piece of something, put it aside. You've dealt with it at that time, put it aside. Now move forward to the next piece. And if you keep doing that, you're going to find yourself moving forward. You're going to find yourself separating, the darkness with the light and say, okay, this was my pain, but this is not who I am. Who is Lisa, the person? Compared to who is the person who was going through trauma. That's not who I am. I am the person I am now, the person I want to be, the person that I've, worked hard to become. And part of it, I do believe, is calling. Sometimes it's a calling. Part of me sharing my story, breaking my silence, using my voice for purpose. It was a calling. I did not expect to be a public speaker. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. I was writing a book. And then all of a sudden, I wrote this powerful book. And I'm like, well, now what do I do with it? I can't just let this sit here, with this powerful story that's like, I can't just let it sit there. So then you do more work. You do more, seeking, and it just put me into public speaking. So now stepping on different stages, speaking about my causes, mental health, child safety, all these things, suicide prevention. I speak a lot about that and how to be mentally healthy. It all comes together and it really does break it apart. So you can still speak of these things, but that's not who you are. The person you are is the one standing there, strong, using your voice for good things. That's who you truly are. And when you embrace it and say, wow, look where I am now, that's when you know that you've separated the two. And that's part of healing.
Taking what you've gone through, having acceptance around it, and this is, these are the cards that have been dealt, but then detaching yourself from what has happened to you, right?
Yes.
And I think, as I think through this, what has happened is one phase of it, but staying attached to that and carrying that through your life now, I would say we blame others when it happened to them, but when they're doing it to themselves, who do you blame, right?
Right.
It's now themselves doing it to themselves. And we have to detach. We have to get intentional behind that. Looking at yourself and saying, I want to now move away from this. I want to change from this,
Right.
is where the next step comes in. If someone is rebuilding their life right now, like what should they focus on first? What's that first step for them?
To rebuild their life, I want to say the first thing they should focus on is their mental health. Where are you? Looking at where you are right at this moment. And now, again, how are we going to move forward from this? But where is my mental status? Where is my mental health? How am I feeling? And what do I need to do to offer self care, to build myself up, to make myself stronger, to get to the next level? And it really, again, it's a lot of self work, a lot of understanding who you are as a person, why you are the person you are, and what brought you there. And you need to understand those things before you could move forward. I can tell you for myself, one part of my healing journey, I did something which was, again, hard. I looked through the lenses of my abusers. I walked the path of my abusers to see why it fell apart for them and how it fell onto me. And I did that work for my mother, my father, and my sexual abuser. And those were hard things to look at because now you're not only looking at, your damage, you're looking at the abuser's damage and why. So the bigger picture and all these things. But it did give me clarity. It gave me understanding of why it fell apart, why it came down onto me. Does it make it right? No, it does not. It doesn't make it right, but it gives you understanding. And then that brings you to yourself. So now here you are, that person who's been through all of this stuff. You have to rebuild yourself because now you are broken. And it comes to self awareness and self understanding. Who are you? Where are you in this moment? What self care can you offer to make yourself strong enough to find that courage to heal and move forward? It's a lot of processes, it's a lot of things, but it really comes back to your own self care and mental health.
Yeah, that's quite incredible, Lisa. Like what you just described there as a journey of putting yourself in their shoes, especially the abuser. Like it's one thing to put yourself in, parent shoes or family member, but the abuser. And I've never looked at it from that perspective, but that would probably reveal a lot of trauma on their own side to get to where they are, right? To behave the way they do, right? So you're able to extract yourself and separate yourself from all of this. They couldn't. They probably still haven't. A lot of them. What was that learning like from for yourself and from their perspective? It's quite fascinating.
It really, I have to be honest, it was quite interesting and very different in regards to looking at their life, looking at their steps, really breaking it down. And of course, when it's your parents, so of course, my mother was one of my main abusers. My mother, had mental illness and struggled profusely for her whole life. She was my main abuser. So here I am, a daughter who was, loved her and hated her at the same time. The daughter who was her advocate till the day she passed away. The daughter who looked at her and said, why? Like, I just want my mother to be my mother, And I had to weed through all of that. I had to weed through it all. I had to weed through it to find who Joanne was, the woman, my mother. Who was Joanne? What were her intentions and how did she get to where she fell into? What happened to her? I did walk her steps. I wrote her book. The book of Joanne is my mother's story, her whole journey about her life and how it fell apart, how it fell onto me. I got a lot of clarity by writing her story. I have to be honest. A lot of healing came through that. And I really learned who Joanne was, the woman. And then I did that same thing for my dad. I walked his steps, why he walked away, why there was those abandonment things that happened and understanding his journey. They lost a child together, my brother. Their world fell apart. Unfortunately, I got lost in the shuffle of all that. And I did find clarity. I found forgiveness. I found understanding. With my sexual abuser, it was very different. It's a very different journey to walk and the hardest one. But what I found there, because he was a young man of 15 when I met him, I found that he was abused as a child. His upbringing was horrendous. He had a lot of bad things happen. He had mental illness that was never addressed. And he turned into this horrifically awful person, unfortunately, because he never got the things that he needed in life. And he took his anger and his rage and put it out there into the world. And unfortunately, I was one of the people who was on the other end of that. I did not find forgiveness to him. I found empathy to his inner child. I found empathy to his younger self and compassion for the damaged child because I was a damaged child as well. So I did find clarity and understanding. But forgiveness was that's a hard one because of what he did to me and how horrific it was, and the fact that he went on and abused so many other people after me. So I found good things. I did find levels of healing there as well. But the forgiveness piece was a very hard thing for me. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And we're not always going to find full forgiveness for things that happen in our lives. And again, is it about his acceptance? It's more about understanding. I think that's a key factor is understanding why, the understanding of why. It doesn't make it better, it doesn't change it, but you have understanding. And I think that helps people to move forward. And it helped me move forward. And it was really interesting work that I did.
And you're right. Like you don't have to forgive, right? Because there are elements that, despite what we go through, despite what we experience, despite what we witness, we have a choice to make a decision at a certain point, as you did, as I did, as many others did. And the ball could stop right at that point and say, listen, just as you did for yourself, you could have taken all of that and pushed it onto someone else.
Yes.
But you chose not to. You chose the ball's going to stop here. I'm going to fix me and I'm going to fix this for others. We all have that ability to make that choice. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of understanding, a lot of acceptance, a lot of appreciation. Like there's a lot of layers of what goes into becoming that person, but it is doable. It
It
is
is
doable.
doable. It is doable. And I think that's another reason why I share so freely. I share so openly. I am very authentic in all that I talk about because I really believe by talking about it the way I do, people can see that it is possible. It is doable. Look at this person who went through X, Y, Z, and Z and Z and Z again, all these things. But, you look at that and say, wow, she's whole. She's put together. She's doing amazing things. She's enjoying life. It's not even just about the work factor, the purpose factor. It's about engaging in life, enjoying family, enjoying good things, smiling, laughing, being real in the moment. Those are all doable. They're doable. We all have pain. We all have had suffering, but the good things can override it. And it does take a lot of work. It's messy, messy, messy all the time. It's messy because you're always, it's those deep emotions that you're always working through, but it's doable. And the more I feel like I share and talk about it, I'm always hopeful that I'm touching somebody that they can say, oh my gosh, she did it. Now I can do it. I'm going to do it. And I have had people come up to me after workshops and presentations who've disclosed abuse to me, disclosed trauma that they've never spoke about. And they said to me, because I heard you today, I'm going to take these steps to do the same thing. And for me, that's priceless. That's the whole essence of why I do what I do. I went through horrific things, and I have to be honest. I mean, nobody wants to go through these things, but it made me who I am today. And now I can help others. And I think that's the most wonderful thing we can do in life is to help others, offer kindness and understanding, and just do the best that we can. And in the process, we need to love ourselves and take care of ourselves too.
Absolutely. So, no, thank you very much for that, Lisa. And I think you're spot on. We all have experiences, but it's how do we take that experience and then turn it into something good for not only for ourselves, but for others as well. And that's exactly what you're doing. So thank you very much for sharing all of that, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I know it's not easy, right? It's not easy. It's you have every moment you have to relive all of that. I've got a client I'm working with now, and she's gone through some severe trauma, and we have the same conversation. I'm like, listen, this is a choice you're going to have to make. If you're going to go down this path of helping others, then you need to understand that you're going to relive those moments in every client, like your own personal moments in every client you work with, because it's going to come back.
It's
And
true.
you have to be prepared and say, is this something you want to do or not?
And you have to look at yourself too. You have to make sure you've done that work to ground yourself before you can move forward to that next step to help others. And it isn't easy. And I have to be honest, when I worked with teenage girls in lockup. Okay. I did that for about 6, 7 years, and they were ages 12 to 18. And I saw myself and my trauma in pretty much every single girl I worked with. And it was hard at times. And I would bring that work home with me. I would bring those girls home in my mind, and relive the things they shared with me. And then I would think, okay, how am I going to help this child? How am I going to help this young girl see life differently? Because she's in fight or flight. Do you know? She's not hearing really what we're saying to them to try to help. But I would
Yeah.
always, like, my gears were always turning, turning, turning. But at some point, you do have to turn it off for a little bit. You have to separate again, give yourself that brain break, because it will consume you. So anybody who does this type of work, you have to remind yourself there is a shut off button. You have to push the boundaries and keep yourself, grounded. And when it becomes too much, take a break and then go back at it again, because it's always going to be there. You do have to take care of yourself always in the process. And that's something I had to learn, because I was not taking care of myself mentally the way I should have for a long time. And I realized as I've gotten older, the more experience that I've had with doing the work that I do, is that, okay, it's going to be there tomorrow. But right now, stop and just take care of you for the moment, because you need to do that. And it's important to, remember that. And people in business, like you say, they stay away from their families because they're working so hard. They also have to remind themselves that tomorrow is going to another day. You're going to have it there. Go spend some time with your family. If there's an important event, don't miss it. Those are the pivotal moments in life that you can't get back. And you really need to find your balance, and balance is hard, but it's doable. It's just constant redirection and reminding yourself.
Oh, absolutely. It's and thank you for all that you do to help these lives, because I think we definitely need more people out there like you, with people who are struggling, or even people who are trying to help those struggling, and they're dealing with the mental burden that we were kind of just talking about. How can they get support? What who should they turn to? What can they do?
The people who are struggling, again, find resources. There's always resources out there. We can tap into so many things. Now, like, look at your local communities. What kind of resources are out there that you can tap into? There's so much online now. Again, people are so busy with life, they don't want to stop for 5 minutes. But you can get things online. There's helpful tools online that you can use. Always create a good circle of people around you. That's important as well. Keep your circle tight. It doesn't have to be huge, but have key people in your world that, if you're struggling, you can say, hey, I just need to just bounce this off of you. I just need to vent this out. Because sometimes that is a huge thing. Someone just listening to you. You're venting it out. They don't have to have a solution for you. You just need someone to hear you. You need to get it off your chest. So always surround yourself with good people, good, honest people who are going to support you, and you'll support them. And you create your own little community. And for people who are doing the work, remember to put good things in your toolbox, your own self-care tools. What's going to ground you? What's going to help you come back to baseline? And it's different for everybody. For me, it's nature. That's my go-to. If I'm struggling, the first thing I say to myself, Lisa, change your scenery. Change your scenery right now. Whether it's the room that you're in, to get into another room, get by a window where I could see life going on, get outside, hit that fresh air, breathe it in. I'm a bird nerd. I'm like listening to birds, talking to my dog. It's all of those things that, are goofy, silly, or whatever they may be. But those things do work. They are effective. When I worked in the office, I was a secretary, and you're in this building all day and it's hustle and bustle, constant, constant. I would be like, okay, it's lunchtime. I'd put my sneakers on, take my heels off, put my sneakers on. I'd go outside. I'd walk the perimeter of the building, and I would just take in whatever the sights and sounds were. I would go sit in my car sometimes, put on music. Just shifting gears for that little bit brings you back to baseline, and then you go back at it. That's something for people to always remember when you're doing this work, or if you are struggling. Take that time for you, even if it's 15, 20 minutes. Change your scenery, change it up, do what makes you feel good just for that little piece of time, and then you go back at it.
No, I love that. Lisa, thank you very much for sharing all of these insights, sharing your story. We're going to switch up gears for a little bit.
Okay.
We're going to go to a rapid fire segment. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. First thing comes to mind, shoot it out, and just let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Go for it.
Right. Let's start with tea or coffee.
Coffee.
Okay. Singing or dancing?
Singing.
I think I know the answer to the next one. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Yeah, you mentioned it in there, so yeah, dogs. So that's why.
My dog.
If you had the ability either to be invisible or to read minds, which would you take?
Oh, I think invisible. I'd like to see
Okay.
what's going on.
Well, I think you'd find out both ways, no, don't you think?
In a sense, but maybe sometimes you don't want to know what somebody's thinking.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's a good point. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, oh, that's what you really think. I get it. Okay, maybe I should leave this room. Yeah. Talk to animals or fly?
Oh, I'm going to talk to the animals.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. If you could have any superpower for one day, which would it be?
Oh, a superpower. Healing. If I had
Oh,
a
I love that.
superpower, I would heal.
Then I don't want to give it to you for a day. I want to give it to you for the rest of your life. Like that's the superpower I want you to have, and you already have it. Actually, based on what we talked about, what you're going through, and how you're helping, you actually have that superpower, Lisa. So thank you for being who you are, my friend. Um, yeah. And the last question: if animals could talk, outside of any pets you have, which would you talk to?
Oh, an owl.
Oh, interesting. Why an owl?
For their wisdom. Dark
Interesting.
wisdom, deep spiritual wisdom. Yes.
Lisa, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for all the time you spent, all the wisdom that you've shared, and helping our audiences and even myself really learn how we can transform. Given the battle is within us, not outside, and we have to accept who we are, our journeys. So thank you very much for sharing that. Any final words for our audience, Lisa?
First of all, thank you, TJ, for having me. I love this conversation today. I think I really believe, not just think, I believe that this is just really great stuff to share out with people so they just can feel that, just those vibes that you can do these things. I think that the thing that I would like to leave with everybody today is always remember your worth, always love yourself. And I'll leave you with my motto that I go by, and it's embrace the journey. Embrace the journey, because we don't know what life is going to give us. So embrace it, be strong, and keep an open mind.
Yeah, no, I love that, Lisa. Thank you very much again. And it is about the journey. We don't know what the destination is. No one knows what their final destination is.
No.
So you might as well make the most of the journey, right? Because that's what we've got. I love that.
To the fullest.
Yeah. Wow, what a conversation. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story so openly with us. What you've built from everything you've been through is so powerful, and I think this conversation will mean a lot to the people who are actually just in the middle of rebuilding themselves. So if someone's listening to this right now and feels like they're starting all over again, I hope this episode reminds them that rebuilding is possible, voice is possible, and purpose is possible. And if you haven't already, then hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications, because just one conversation can change your life. This is Tea Talks. See you next time.